Okay, hello everyone. So we'll be talking about the principles of security. We're in the new chapter, and I've explained to every one of you um, that you can go ahead after the practicals. You can go ahead and get all your exams. You can start doing the quiz exams that you have. Go to the labs, do all the labs in chapter one, and move on. All right. Okay. So for me, I believe in the next few days, we'll round up this the whole class. We have round up the whole class, the whole chapter in the next few weeks. Okay, today's 17. All right, so the principles of security. The first dimension of the cybersecurity cube identifies the goals to protect cyberspace. Now, the goals identified in the first dimension, okay, the goal identified in the first dimension are the foundations, okay? They are the foundations. They are the foundational principles. So these three principles are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, the principles provide focus and enable the cybersecurity expert to prioritize actions when protecting any network. Okay? When protecting any network system. So confidentiality prevents the disclosure of information, okay, to unauthorized people, resources, or processes. So integrity refers to the accuracy, while consistency and trustworthiness of data. So finally, availability ensures that information is accessible by authorized users, okay, when needed. So you use the acronym CIA to remember these three principles. The principles are what? They are first, the C stands for confidentiality. The I stands for integrity, while the A starts from availability. So anytime you think about it, you just think about CIA. So those are the principles. Now the principles, as we see what the levels are, looking at the diagram, you see that the confidentiality has the level of processing, storage, and transmission. Okay, while the integrity has policies and practice, availability has people. Okay, so this is how it's actually being designed. So those are the security principles that is required. Okay, so let's look at the cyberspace. All right, the cyberspace is a domain containing a considerable amount of critical important data. Therefore, cybersecurity experts focus on protecting data. The second dimension of the cybersecurity cube focuses on the problems of protecting all of the states of data in cyberspace. So data has three possible states. One, we have data in transit. We have data in transit. We have data at rest or in storage, and we have data in progress. So the protection of cyberspace requires cybersecurity professionals to account for the safeguarding of data in all these three stages. So we're talking about data in transit, we're talking about data at rest in a storage, and we're talking about data in progress. All right, so I'm going to be breaking this down for everyone to have a full understanding. Okay, so we have from the diagram, you can see the security principles and information of states, the way is countermeasures. You have the confidentiality up here, we have the integrity, we have the availability, we have transmission, which transmission and technology, we have storage and policies, we have processing and people. So those are the three things. So those are the things you need to protect. So the cybersecurity safeguards, what are those things you are protecting? So they want to show it to us right now. So the third dimension of the cybersecurity cube defines the skills and disciplines. Okay, the skills and discipline a cybersecurity professional can call upon to protect cyberspace. So cybersecurity professional must use a range of different skills and principles available to them when protecting the data in the cyberspace. So they must do this while remaining on the right side of the law. So a cybersecurity cube identifies three types of skills and disciplines used to provide protection. Okay, and the first one, okay, the first skill includes technologies. What technologies are you using? And the second one is devices, and the last and products availability. So now the product available to protect information system and fend off cyber criminals. So cyber security professionals have a reputation for mastering the technological tools at their disposal. So what makes you more useful or more technologically expert is when you make use of those available tools at your disposal. So please, it's very important. So Scuba reminds them that the technological tools are not enough to defeat cyber criminals. He says cyber security professional must also build a strong defense by establishing policies, procedures, and guidelines that enable the users of cyberspace to stay safe and follow good practices. So finally, users of cyberspace must strive to become more knowledgeable about the threat of the cyberspace and establish a culture of learning and awareness. Okay, so then we talk about the principle of confidentiality. All right, this is very key. And these are the principles you need to know as a cybersecurity personnel. So confidentiality prevents the disclosure of information to unauthorized people, resources, and processes. So what it does is to keep confidence of every documentation, every data that is available. Okay? So another term for it is privacy. If you don't want to use confidentiality, you can use privacy. So organizations restrict access to ensure that only authorized operators can use data or other network resources. For example, a programmer should not have access to the personal information of all employees. That you are a programmer in an organization should not give you access. And that is the problem we have with most of the bankers or most of the banks. Most of their programmers have access to customers' information, and that is where the fraud comes out. But you see them telling you they know their staff, they know this, but that is where the informations of the staff are being given out to their to those fraudsters. So organization needs to train employees about best practices in safeguarding sensitive information to protect themselves and the organization from attacks. So methods used to ensure confidentiality includes data encryption, authentication, and access control. So how do you protect your data? So we want to talk about the protecting data privacy. We want to talk about the protecting data privacy. Okay. So organization collect a large amount of money. Sorry, large amount of data. Okay, sorry about that. I had to, I have to pause. Sorry about that. I have to pause the. All right. So, organization collect a large amount of data. Okay, much of this data is not sensitive because it is publicly available. So, like names and telephone numbers, other data collected though is sensitive. So sensitive information is data protected from unauthorized access to safeguard an individual or an organization. So there are three types of sensitive information. Please take note of this. Very, very important. There are three types of sensitive information. Okay. Okay. We have the personal information. Okay, personal information is personally identifiable information. That's what they call it. That traces back to an individual. So if you look at the figure 2 here, They're going to see what personal information is talking about. We're talking about your social security number. We're talking about your medical records. We're talking about your credit card numbers. We're talking about your financial records. Okay. So, so these are the categories of information that has to be protected. So also we have what we call the business information. Business information is information that includes anything that poses a risk to the organization if discovered by the public or competitor. So figure 3 list talks about that. Now, what are those things? We are talking about the trade secret. You have a business, what are the trade secrets? Some people, their trade secrets is always stored in their system. Then we have acquisition plans, the plans that the company wants to do between now and the next 5 years, they have it on their system. Then they have financial data. How is the record? Okay, then they have customer information. These 4 are the most important information that has to be protected in an organization. So then we have the classified information. Classified information is information belonging to a government body classified by its level of sensitivity. So classified informations actually are top secret. We have the secret, we have the confidential, we have the restricted. Okay, so these are the particular data that cybersecurity personnel have to protect, and they call it protecting data privacy. Okay, protecting data privacy. So we're going to talk about the controlling access as well now. So the controlling access control defines a number of protection schemes that prevent unauthorized access to a computer, network, or database, or other data resources. So the concept of AAA involves 3 security services, which is authentication, authorization, and accounting. I said authentication, authorization, and accounting. So these services provide the primary framework to control. It provides the primary framework, okay? It provides the primary framework to control access. So the first A, which we're going to talk about in AAA, represents authentication.
Right.
Okay, it represents authentication. So how do we discuss authentication? Authentication verifies the identity of a user to prevent unauthorized access. So users prove their identity with a username or an ID. In addition, users need to verify their identity by providing one of the following as shown in the figure 1. So one of the following is something they know, such as a password. Then something they have, such as a token or a card. Then something they have, such as a fingerprint. So these are the 3 authentication that is allowed when it comes to the AAA. Okay, so the first A is authentication, and I've explained it to you just now. So for example, let's look at an example of what we're talking about. If you go to an ATM for cash and you need your bank card, okay, which is something you have, and you need to know the PIN. This is also an example of multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication requires more than one type of authentication, which means when you use your ATM, you put in the card, it is not ending there. You still have to enter a PIN to allow you access your account. Okay, so the most popular form of authentication is the use of password. So please take note of that. So we're going to move into authorization. Authorization services. Authorization services determine which resources user can access, along with the operation that users can perform. So as shown in figure 2, some systems accomplish this by using an access control list or an ACL. An ACL determines whether a user has certain access privileges once the user authenticates. Just because you can log onto the corporate network does not mean that you have permission to use the high-speed color printer. So there must be what they call authorization. So authorization can also control when a user has access to a specific resources. For example, employees may have access to a sales database during work hours, but the system logs them out after the close of work, meaning after close of work, you cannot access that sales database. That is what we call authorization, all right? So you can see the diagram. User John authenticates. User John's request access to file 01. User John, group admin approved for him. You see the read, you see the write, you see the executed, you see the access granted. Okay, so during the last practical in chapter 1, you saw where you were able to create a user, which is some of your staff, and you're able to give them access through that setup you did. So that is how to create authorization, all right? So let's look at the accounting part of it. Now, accounting keeps track of what users do. It keeps track of what goes on the system or on the network or on the database, including what they access. So the amount of time they access resources and any changes made, okay, will be viewed or can be viewed by the cybersecurity personnel in the office. So I'm going to give you an example. A bank keeps a track of each customer. An audit of that system can reveal the time and amount of all transaction and employee or system that executed transaction. So I gave an example some time ago during the COVID-19, where one of the bank officer had access to an account and was using it to trade. So unfortunately, I don't know what happened. One of the staff now had access online. Maybe they didn't know the customer can always go online. The customer now went online, now find out that his money is missing. And immediately he found out during that COVID-19 that his money was missing. He sent an email. Before we close our eyes, the money was returned back. After the COVID-19, they started an investigation and found that one of the account relationship manager and the regional manager were actually picking people's dollar accounts, picking some money from their account and using it to trade. Okay, so these are issues that is very important as a cybersecurity or for cybersecurity people in an office. Okay, because what they did there was very wrong. So cybersecurity accounting services work the same way. Okay, cybersecurity accounting services work the same way. The system tracks each data transaction and provides auditing results. An administrator can set up computer policies as shown in figure 3. Okay, so you can see the policies. These are different policies that was created. Now you can create all those policies, all right? Or the policies can come with your installation of your tools. Okay. Now, when those policies are created, it allows you to be able to monitor or audit the system. Okay. So an administrator can set up computer policies as shown in figure 3 to enable system auditing. So then the concept of the AAA is similar to using a credit card. Okay, it's similar to using a credit card, and we're going to explain this so you don't get too confused. The credit card identifies who can use it, how much that user can spend, and accounts for items or services the user purchased. That's what a credit card does. So cybersecurity accounting tracks and monitors in real time websites like NOS show attacks in real time based on the data collected as part of an accounting or tracking system. Okay, so that is how it works. So the AAA is one of the key way to control access under the confidentiality. All right, So please, let's take note of that. So we move to the laws and the liability. Now, the laws and the liability under confidentiality is what thing you need to know. Every organization has law, but everybody must work with the US law, because the US law is the one that is controlling all cybersecurity presently. Okay, so we use anything that has to do with global, we use the US law. Okay, so confidentiality and privacy seem interchangeable. So, but from a legal view, from a legal standpoint, okay, from a legal standpoint, they mean different things. So most privacy data is confidential, but not all confidential data is private. So what does this mean? Access to confidential information occurs after confirming proper authorization. So a financial institution, hospitals, medical professional, law firm, and business handling confidential information. So confidential information has a non-public status. Maintaining confidentiality is more of an ethical duty, meaning as you open your office, as you open anything, the first thing your brain must talk about is how to keep confidential information of your customers. So let's talk about the privacy. The privacy is the appropriate use of data. So when organizations collect information provided by customers or employees, they should only use that data for its intended purpose. Most organizations will require the customers or employees to sign a release form, giving the organization permission to use the data. All of these laws listed in the figure include a provision for dealing with privacy, starting with US law. Okay, so you will see the list, a sample of international effort. Most of these laws are a response to the massive growth in data, because every day data keep growing. So there are a lot of international effort that's been put together, like the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act of Canada, the Computer Processed Personal Information Protection Act of China, Act on the Protection of Personal Information in Japan, Convention for the Protection of Individuals with regard to automatic processing of personal data, Russia. So Article 8, European Convention on Human Rights. So you can see these are international efforts that have been put together to enable a smooth privacy to take place when it comes to data. So the growing number of privacy-related statutes create a tremendous burden on organizations that collect and analyze data. So policies are the best way for an organization to comply with the growing number of privacy-related laws. So policies enable organizations to enforce specific rules, procedures, and processes when collecting, storing, and sharing data. So we'll be looking at the principle of data integrity. Data integrity is important. As we have seen the confidentiality, we are moving to the principle of integrity. Now, the principle of integrity talks about the data quality, the accuracy, the integrity, and the validity. So, integrity is the accuracy, consistency, and trustworthiness of data during its entire life cycle. Please take note of this. Another term for integrity is quality. Data undergoes a number of operations such as capture, storage, retrieval, update, and transfer. Data must remain unaltered during all of these operations by unauthorized entities. So methods used to ensure data integrity include the hashing okay, which you did in introduction of cybersecurity. Then you have methods used to ensure data integrity include hashing, data validation checks, data consistency checks, and access controls. Data integrity system can include one or more of these methods listed above, okay, which is the data quality, the accuracy, the integrity, and the validity. All right, so let's move to the need for data integrity. Why do we need this data integrity? Why do we need it? Need for data integrity. You can see the table you're seeing in front of me. All right, we have the critical level, we have the high level, we have the middle level, we have the low level. Okay, now data integrity is a fundamental component of information security. The need for data integrity varies based on how an organization uses data. So for example, we're going to use Facebook. Facebook does not verify the data that the user posts in a profile. They don't verify it. That is why you see that everybody can just pick one person's face and put another person's face and put another person's face and put, because they don't verify it. They don't want to know. They don't even want to know who owns the face. If they lie, they use, if 10 people use different face with different name, Facebook does not verify. So Facebook does not verify the data that a user posts in a profile. A bank or financial organization assign a higher importance to data integrity than Facebook does. Why? Because transactions and customer accounts must be accurate. If you open an account in a bank, the first thing they need to do is to check all the entire database. And that is why the introduction of BVN was introduced. So if you have opened an account and your BVN exists, so they have tied your BVN to your thumbprint. So when you get to a bank and you put, even if your bank, except that bank is not under CBN server. CBN is the Central Bank of Nigeria. As long as your bank is under CBN, you walk into any bank and put your thumbprint, it will bring out your BVN information straight up. If you are owing any bank, or you are owing, or you've been owing, it will pump it up. That is how, because the reason why they had to do this is before now, many businessmen, they had what they call a systemic way of borrowing money. If they borrow Union Bank 2 million today, tomorrow, let's say that they want to pay back the 2 million, they will go to UBA and borrow 2 million from UBA and pay Union Bank back. After paying Union Bank back, another 3 months again, they will go to GTB and borrow 2 million or 3 million. That is how the businessman has been running. So they don't use their money to do business. You understand? So at the end of the day, when government notice that this one person has borrowed money and is still borrowing the money circulating, because after he borrows the money round the whole year, he will now still come back the following year to continue borrowing from the new bank. And you know, bank will be happy. They will say, oh, this man, you're a very good man. You paid that money back fully and you are coming back. So every year, the businessman does that. I'm saying this from experience because I have a businessman before this BVN came. That was what he was doing. And he has used it to grow his business, like more than anything. Before federal government noticed that if all these people like Dangote, people like all these Folawiyo and all those big people that are collecting big money from different banks, and they are doing it continuously, it will bankrupt a lot of organizations. They now have to introduce that technology. Okay, so it is very important that, I'm not saying all the organizations do that, but I'm just giving an example that some business people do that, which I've seen one or two. Okay, so it is very important we take note of that. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because as a cybersecurity personnel, there are some information, critical information you have to watch, okay? So protecting data integrity is a constant challenge for most organizations. Loss of data integrity can render entire data resources unreliable or unstable, okay? So please, let's take note of that. So you can check the critical level, check the high level, check the middle level, check the low level for you to see the need for data integrity. So let's talk about the integrity checks. What are the integrity checks that we have? What are the integrity checks that we have?